It's time for Nip Talk.
Actually going to be on Fox News Radio in a couple weeks doing some interviews about this.
Okay.
Because it's a pretty interesting topic, and it basically revolves around, does having plastic surgery have an effect on your marriage? It's a good question, you know?
I mean, I know in relationships like Joey, I think guys freak out. You don't get anything done because they think you're going to look like some freak, right? There are people out there that have horrible work done.
Or they get too much.
And then I think for the most part, men freak out and think you're going to look like that. And then I had to have the conversation of like, you met me this way, like I was a stripper. Like it's weird. And so I'm like, this is who I am. I told you, Dallas girl by trade. It's a job.
I mean, as a plastic surgeon, like I've heard both things. I've heard that, somebody has plastic surgery and suddenly their marriage is better for whatever reasons. And I've also heard the story of, somebody had plastic surgery and suddenly they're divorced. So, I think that probably the better question the question shouldn't be, does plastic surgery affect your marriage? It's, do the effects of plastic surgery affect your marriage? And that's how I kind of like dug into this when I was like doing some research on it. And so there are some studies about it, and there's no great study that's like, if you have plastic surgery, like your marriage is bad, worse. I mean, there's a couple, I looked through them, and I'm going to touch on one. But what I started to look at is, what are the claimed effects of having a successful plastic surgery? Now, of course, if someone has a plastic surgery and they get botched, or like, it goes badly.
What's that big scar on your forehead?
Yeah, then
probably
maybe
botched.
we're probably not going to include them. But so I started digging into it, and there was a study from 2009 of the Journal of Plastic Reconstructive and Aesthetic Surgery. And what it looked at is basically the effects of cosmetic surgery on both body image and self-esteem. And on both accounts, more with the body image than the self-esteem, but on both, there was a significant increase in how people looked at their body image and how they looked at their self-esteem. Further, there was a 2015 study by the International Journal of Emergency and Mental Health that looked at specifically self-esteem and cosmetic surgery, and it also found a very strong correlation. People that had cosmetic surgery had a noticeable increase in their self-esteem. And so if you look at those factors in plastic surgery and you say, okay, well, how is that going to relate to a marriage? Well, a lot of times such factors do improve marriages. So there was a study in 2018 of the World Journal of Plastic Surgery, and it looked at basically the patient scores in these different metrics of marriage. And it looked at people that didn't have plastic surgery, and it looked at it did. And the ones that did have plastic surgery actually had some increases in some of these metrics, like fulfillment, like there was one about, sexual intimacy, like just, feeling comfortable with your partner, so on and so forth. And then it kind of broke down, like, what are the effects that are causing this? And not surprisingly, number one, self-confidence.
Sure.
If people are self-confident in their marriage, it does have positive effects on the marriage. And so you can see that bleed through. And now, please, people, don't take this as me saying, go have plastic surgery, it's going to save your marriage. This is not the conversation that we're having at all.
Doc's also a marriage counselor. You know what your marriage needs? Plastic surgery.
Nope, not saying that. But like, if you do want to dig into the research, there actually is a fair amount of research that shows that plastic surgery can improve your self-esteem, because a lot of people will have, how we are, Jasmine. Like,
well, of course.
People look at themselves and they're like, oh my God, I'm so, whatever.
You see Sloth from the Goonies in the mirror,
exactly.
and people are like, no. Well, here's what also drives me absolutely crazy. When someone is talking about, I want to get this done or this done, the most condescending, grossest thing you can tell someone is, you really don't need that done. You're beautiful just the way you are. And it's like, great, you may struggle with that.
It's glossing over,
But if someone has something that they seriously are self-conscious about their whole life, and it would make them feel better. Now, again, you've got to peel back the psychology of, are you doing this because you want to be the better version of yourself? Or are you doing this because you want to look like someone else? And that's a whole different psychology.
Sure.
But if you want to get rid of something that you've been self-conscious about, someone coming along going, well, you don't need that done. It's like, shut up.
Yeah, I mean,
shut up.
I always try to look at both sides of it. I mean, you're absolutely right. You don't want to. It's like when you tell people, don't be anxious, right? Like, it's a common thing that.
Great, let me switch it off. Thanks. So glad I ran into you. Now I'm not anxious anymore.
It's the same thing when people have issues with their body. Like, you can't just tell them, it's not an issue, because it's an issue to them. Like, you can't tell them it's not an issue. Now, I will tell you, when I had patients come in, I mean, part of my job is to make sure that people are, doing surgeries for the right reasons, because you don't want someone to have a surgery and not get the expected outcome. And then, you know, that's kind of on you as a
So
surgeon.
what are some things as a surgeon you look for psychologically? That's like a red flag.
I mean, a couple things for sure. If like they're only going to be happy with what something they consider perfect, you know, that's something I always talk about with patients. Like, look, I can make you look better, and I'll say like on a degree, right? If somebody comes in, they have something that I can make it night and day. I'm like, I can make this night and day. Where I like get a little nervous is when, and I don't really have this happen very often because I feel like my patients are pretty even keeled. But like if somebody came in and is like, I don't want to have this unless it's perfect, that's an alarm bell, because it kind of like. It gives a feeling of body dysmorphic disorder where no matter what they have done, they're going to be unsatisfied. And so, you know, a big job of plastic surgeon is to kind of like make sure that people, you know, don't have a true disorder that is why they're seeking plastic surgery. Also, people seeking plastic surgery for like what I call bad reasons, like, oh, I'm going to have plastic surgery so my husband is attracted to me again. I mean, if you're having to have plastic surgery to make your husband attracted to you, then the problem is not you.
No, you probably need to.
It's like your marriage, right?
He needs to probably go.
You know, I mean, I've had people come in where it's like a husband and wife, and like the husband like is trying to like. I haven't had this happen in a long time, but in the past I've had it happen where the husband's like, oh, well, I want you to have this, I want you to have this, and like, I mean, I will kind of like stop the consult.
Wait, he says that in the room?
I've had it happen, yeah, I have. It's not common, but like, you know, it's like one of those like really kind of submissive type marriages.
Well, the stone's on someone either way,
Listen,
whether it's the
man.
woman to the man or the man to the woman, to be like, yeah, you should probably change that up a little bit.
It's funny, like I often, you know, oftentimes people bring their spouse or significant other, and like you know, I see mostly women, but I occasionally see men. But
Sure.
when the person seeking surgery asks the spouse, "What do you think?" and the perfect answer is like, "Whatever you want,
Whatever
babe.
you want, honey.
Whatever
I think
you
you're
want, babe." I was
beautiful
like,
just the way you are.
That's a good spouse. Yep, that's the exact right answer.
Right.
So, but I mean, you know, there are
Yikes.
things as plastic surgeons that, I mean, if you're doing your due diligence and you're being a good doctor and a good plastic surgeon, that you try to make sure people are doing things for the right reasons. Like,
Sure.
you know, because one, it's the right thing to do, obviously. And two, it's just good for you and the patient. Because if the patient has surgery and they're unsatisfied with their outcome, that's not good for them. That's not good for you. I mean, yeah, the surgeon made a few dollars, but like an unhappy patient, like, is, you know, not something you want to have. Like,
Probably not, because then the Yelp reviews probably aren't the greatest.
Exactly.
If you.
So the other side of this coin is, you know, does plastic surgery lead to divorce? Now, that's the classic thing that you always hear is, you know, oh, so-and-so went and got plastic surgery and now like they left their husband or like they ran off with somebody or whatnot. And so,
Oh, I have a story about that.
ooh,
I
well, here
do.
we go this, and I definitely want to hear it.
Okay.
So, you know, to dig into this, I started looking at what are the reasons that people stay in a bad relationship. And the number one reason that people stay in a bad relationship is related to fear and self-doubt.
I feel attacked right now.
I
My
promise.
20s are coming out.
This is not personal.
All right, come on, Doc, lay it on me.
But you know, so you can start to apply the same things we talked about. If plastic surgery improves your self-confidence and improves your self-image, then suddenly you'll see people who start to overcome those fears of leaving a relationship that maybe they didn't want to be in, right? It's like, okay, I'm not going to get divorced and be alone forever because I'm a confident person now. And I'm not saying plastic surgery is going to make you somebody or not, but it's the effect that plastic surgery does have, that it can change some of the things you're self-conscious about. It can raise your self-esteem. And that's why I think that sometimes you'll hear that story of so-and-so did these things, they feel better about themselves and suddenly realize that maybe that,
Deuces.
yeah, maybe that they're not supposed to be in this relationship anymore. Go ahead, I
So,
want to hear
a
it.
friend of a friend
Of a friend
of
of
a
a
friend of a friend of a friend, because I don't want people to do the math. Anyway, so she's in this like super unhappy marriage.
Oh, I hate that.
Terrible, right?
makes me
Was
sad.
it's very sad. Was openly cheating, and like everybody kind of knew.
no.
And the husband was like, "No, I don't." And we're like, "Homie, signs. Here we go. Here's all the exhibits A through Z." She was the cheater.
Okay. And he was like not.
He was like, "No, just blah, 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 blah." It's like, dude, no, sorry. So anyway, he's like, "No, we're doing marriage counseling, blah blah blah." And then suddenly, Doc, she wanted breast implants.
Oh my gosh.
And what did he do? He's like, "Sure, honey, whatever's going to make our marriage work."
Oh my god.
And suddenly
know what's
she
happening.
was getting piercings and getting
took a turn.
tattoos.
Okay.
And I mean, just dyeing her hair a different color, just really like just being young. And her clothing style changed a little bit. It was a little bit more, you know, risque. Not like overtly, but it wasn't like, you know, she was starting to show a little more skin now and tighter clothes. So it wasn't like stuff was hanging out, but it was more frame hugging. Okay. And we're all like, come on, man, literally the signs. Well, shock to everybody, plot twist, spoiler alert, all of it. She ends up like full on having a relationship with this other person. It came out in the open, and then she was like, yeah, I want to leave you.
Oh.
Leaves him, but here's the thing. He was paying for the fine tuning for new homeboy to, well, because he paid for it all. Yeah, he's making payments on his credit card.
There's actually some articles out there looking into lawsuits involved with when a spouse pays for plastic surgery and can they be remunerated for that after divorce? And so I know that wasn't really what I was looking at, but I kind of was like, oh, this is interesting. And it comes to find out that like you can't.
Terrible.
Like, at least the articles I said or that I read showed that if you pay for someone's plastic surgery and then you split up, like you don't get like half an implant.
No, you only take half that back. We're going to split it.
But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. So I'm really looking forward to doing those interviews because I think that there's some really good things to talk about there and some good things to unpack. And once again, I would like to say that please don't go out and have plastic surgery to save your marriage. That's the wrong thing to do.
I think that's what Doc was actually saying.
I think it's not.